are here today at the ASPE Convention and Expo, which is taking place at the Indiana Convention Center. My guest this morning is Dennis Whitelaw from Towle Whitney. Good morning, Dennis.
Good morning. Thank you for the introduction.
Thank you. Why don't we start off and why don't you tell our viewers, a little bit about your role at Towle Whitney?
All right. Well, I'm the president of Towle Whitney and the owner, so that means I sell product and I sweep floors and I make coffee and I buy product and I troubleshoot and pretty much wear a lot of hats every day unless I'm out here enjoying the good food in Indianapolis.
Oh, wonderful. And why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about your company?
So we're a small company, 6 employees. We build water booster pumps for multifamily buildings, dormitories, offices, kind of the smaller buildings you see.
Okay, and you have a GEN5 platform out there on the market today, correct?
Yeah, it's the GEN5 is a new invention of ours. We basically have eliminated the 3-inch and 4-inch backflow preventer at the meter, and we put 2-inch backflow preventers on our booster pump frame with a DWB system. And what that's done for the engineer and the architect and the contractor is it saves a lot of space, it saves a lot of material. It also saves a lot of on-site labor, and basically it gives everybody a much smaller product to work with and eliminates a lot of hassle on the job.
Okay, so there's 5 primary systems in the GEN5?
Well, there's 3. You have the backflow, you have the backflow DWB system, then you have the booster pump, but you can also put on a bypass, you could put on a low pressure port, you could put on flood control, you can put on strainers. There's all different types of options that the engineer can select depending on what he wants to specify.
That sounds awesome. What are the benefits of the GEN5 to facility owners?
So that's a great question because we also often forget about the facility owner when we're specifying, but you get a much more sanitary water out of our system because in a 3-inch backflow or 4-inch, you have a lot of low flow and slow flow through there, so you get a lot of stagnant water. With ours, you have smaller backflow preventers, the water flows through it faster, creates a more sanitary system. So that's one. The second is, ASHRAE 188 talks about interrupted water service. So with our product, when you're testing the backflow, you don't have to interrupt the water service, which is huge for the sanitary condition. And the biggest reason for the facility owner is that when you're testing a backflow preventer, if you have a single backflow, you have to shut the entire building down. With our system, you can shut down one of the backflows and the water goes through the other backflow, and so you never have to shut the building water down. So for the facility owner, it's a huge hassle to have to tell the tenants about the testing. He doesn't have to worry about that anymore.
So it helps you isolate if there's an issue to be addressed.
Yeah, and you can isolate it also.
Yeah. Okay, are there any, what do you think, so you're a pretty small player in a big sea of players in this industry. What do you think are the advantages of being being a small, intimate company?
So when you're small, you can move quick. And one of the reasons we can move quick is we don't have a lot of third-party certifications that we, UL, NSF, or any of those. And so we don't have a lot of parties that we have to comply with. So when we have to make a decision, a couple of us get together, we make a decision, the next day we'll implement that decision. So we pivot and move very quickly.
Okay, and are there any disadvantages to being small? I mean,
yeah,
there's pros and cons to everything.
There's there's really 2. There's one, multitasking, which we all struggle with. Doing one thing and then getting pulled in another direction the next minute, and then trying to go back to the original task and do it right. And then the other is really focusing on our core business and not being pulled in directions that really don't help our overall mission of booster pumps.
Okay, and what inspired you to establish this whole company and create the GEN5 platform?
So, my early days in this industry, I worked for Febco, which was a backflow manufacturer, and I worked for Zurn, and I worked for Flamatic, and so I was one of those backflow geeks, knew everything about backflow, and from the durometer, the rubber, all the way up. And so fast forward 30 years and I'm running a booster pump company. I thought it would be a good idea if we could take the backflow preventers that live right next to the booster pump in the mechanical room and put them on one platform and save a lot of space. So that's really where the whole idea generated from.
Oh, and it's like, okay, so what led you to be a contrarian in the industry? Because this is not typical.
So we're a contrarian or a disruptor. By nature, I'm a rule follower. Firstborn, Boy Scout, naval officer, business owner, husband, lots of rules to follow.
Yeah.
But when you ask why, and you come back with the because that's the way we've always done it, that's when you really start digging. And so that's what we do as a company, because we have that ability to do that. So we don't supply an ASME tank with our systems. We supply a non-ASME tank because we want to save our client thousands of dollars. We don't supply a UL 508 panel or a PLC because we don't need them, because the variable frequency drives, they're networked, they talk to each other. We don't need to spend a couple extra $1,000 on this other equipment. And then the last piece is right sizing. For 18 years we've been talking about, downsizing the demand on the buildings. We're really not using that much, so we use this Gould's chart, and now we use the water demand calculator to really do our sizing for us.
Okay, so water demand calculator, I think, is gaining traction in the industry, and you're using it. Why do you find it so important?
It really is. IAPMO, it's important because the numbers are about the same as the Gould's chart.
Okay.
But the water demand calculator is an IAPMO product. They developed it. They have a lot more credibility, and so they really, and it's a much more selective tool because you really put in a lot more information in it. And what comes out of it is that your demand is typically a half to a third of your typical plumbing code demand. So that means we can use a lot smaller horsepower pumps. And if we know that demand's a lot smaller, then we know that there's less water running through the pipes, there's less friction, and so we really don't even deal with friction loss. So we're really winning on two fronts when we lower the horsepower, both from a volume and from a pressure standpoint.
Oh, wow. I'm going to switch gears and talk about I wouldn't call it the elephant in the room anymore, but the pandemic has impacted the industry quite a bit in the last few years. How has it impacted your business?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
So we launched the GEN5 right at the beginning of COVID, and it was great. We had some great momentum. We were doing lunch and learns. We were dragging the thing around, and all of a sudden COVID hit, and we were dead in our tracks. So we started developing videos and just trying to reproduce the dialogue that we're having at the lunch and learn, which actually turned out to be a good move. So we probably have about a dozen videos now that kind of go over the whole thing.
Oh, that's wonderful. So you switched to doing more virtual events, and then...
Yeah, the virtual events are brutal. It's tough enough to do an event in front of engineers, but when you're doing it virtually and you have 12 engineers on the computer screen and 10 of them are blank spaces, you kind of lose that connection. Right. So that was a little tough to do.
Well, you definitely seem more like a people person to me too, so I can see how that would impact you. What can we expect from Towle Whitney in the coming next year?
So we hope to get back on the in-person lunch and learns with the ASPE engineers, to go into ASPE events. We have the symposium coming up in Bellevue that we're looking forward to. The Boston chapter is going to have our product show again, which is one of the top shows around. So we're just looking forward to another really good year.
Great. If there's anyone at the show that would like to learn more about Towle Whitney, where can they visit you?
Yeah, so just over at booth 200, just over the wall here.
Okay.
They come visit us, or they can find us at towlewhitney.com, or give us a call.
Wonderful.
I may even answer the phone.
Perfect. Thank you so much for taking time to speak with me.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.